God, Country, Notre Dame. Father Theodore Hesburgh's impact on the university has always been strong. Now a pair of filmmakers want to make sure his legacy lives on for future generations. Our Vahid Sadrazadeh is live at the Hesburgh Library with that story. Hey, Vahid.
Allison, good morning. Hesburgh, the documentary, just came out on DVD just a couple of days ago, this week, in fact. But in May, it was the premiere, and we had a chance to sit down with the filmmakers, the writer and the director, Notre Dame alums, whose other works you may know very well. The names remain the same, but the storylines couldn't be more contrasting.
Two teams, two eras are about to clash.
I should warn your viewers, there's not nearly as much football in the Hesburgh film as there was in our 30 for 30, Catholics versus Convicts.
Notre Dame alums Patrick Creadon and Jerry Barca, this time, wanted to preserve a different piece of Notre Dame history.
He advises presidents, confers with the Pope, is chairman of the Rockefeller Foundation. He is Father Theodore Martin Hesburgh, president of the University of Notre Dame.
I realized that there was a very good chance that his story was just gonna kind of fade away. Certainly not within the Notre Dame community, but outside of the Notre Dame community, I think people were quickly forgetting who he was and what he meant.
Though Creadon, the documentary's director, was faced with multiple challenges long before he brought Notre Dame's larger-than-life legend to the big screen.
We're making a film about a Catholic priest in 2019 who's been gone now for several years. And he's been off the public's radar for a long time, 20 or 30 years. How do we make that relevant? How do we make that vibrant? How do we bring that story to life?
And more importantly, why was it so vital to share his message now? The pair say today more than ever, the country and the world is seeing a crisis in leadership, and what Father Ted exemplified during his years as the university's leader needs to be seen.
I genuinely believe that we need Father Ted and examples like him right now, because we have forgotten what good leadership can look like.
The documentary digs into the essence of what Father Ted meant, not only to the overall growth of Notre Dame as a Catholic institution,
Mr. President, distinguished delegates,
but the relationships he forged with civil rights icons to bring about change on the topic of racial injustice in the 1960s.
Father Ted referred to the Civil Rights Commission as the conscience of the government. The commission will pay attention to what the government is doing, and if it's doing something that invades people's rights or won't advance human rights, then the commission ought to speak out and say so.
What were the challenges in reaching people who knew him well? What new information are we going to learn about him if we're Notre Dame fanatics? And what information are people going to learn about him if they don't know anything about Father Ted?
We always aimed for the widest general audience, what was going to appeal to them, and also we had to unearth things that people didn't know about Father Ted.
For Barca and Creadon, the way to tell that story was to talk to those that knew him best, including his late-in-life caregiver and Father Ted's personal driver.
What impresses me is what a good man he was, how he treated people, how he treated everybody the same.
Marty Ogren grew up in South Bend and became his go-to driver in 1976.
I said, Father, you might want to take a look at that young lady. I think she's got something going on. The next day he told me that that young lady had found out that her dad died that day. Her family called. She's from South America. They don't have the money for her to stay at Notre Dame. But Father Ted arranged to get her home, arranged to get her back, took care of her tuition and everything, you know. And out of all the things that, you know, people see, he took care of this young lady that needed him.
Long after his death, these stories continue to live on. Father Theodore Hesburgh's legacy, memory, and mark, leaving an imprint too large to measure. What do you want people to feel when they walk out of the theater or sit at home and watch Hesburgh?
What I want for people, and what I think they leave with, is inspired by what one man did with his life, but also inspired by what they could do with their own life.
That every single life matters, and that every single person can really make a difference in the world. That's one thing. The second takeaway I hope people take with them and carry with them is just the idea of kindness.
The most influential man in this country, aren't you?
I don't think I'm trying to be. I know a lot of people. A lot of it's just power of friendship.
I think it's very simple. Be kind to one another. Take care of one another. Do what you can. You know, you can't help everybody. Help the one you can, even if it's one person. Be kind. Take his example of what he did for people and make a difference in one person's life. If you did that, you'd be honoring Father Ted.
It's a very moving story about an ordinary man who lived an extraordinary life. And telling the story has really been one of the great honors of my career.
And don't forget the tissues.
Bring the tissues, yeah, for sure.
That statement is absolutely true. I was at the premiere in May in South Bend, and needless to say, there was not a dry eye in the crowd. Creadon and Barca went through so many avenues to find information on the legacy of Father Ted, including the FBI, which, believe it or not, collected 430 pages of Hesburgh over